Okay, so picture this. You're the most paranoid leader on the planet. You trust absolutely nobody. You've had people executed for disagreeing with you. Your own generals are terrified of you. Your own inner circle eats dinner with you every night, not knowing if they're going home afterward. And then, you trust the one person you really, really shouldn't have. That's Stalin. In 1941. And it nearly ended Russia entirely. Here's what gets me about this story. It wasn't like the warning signs weren't there. They were everywhere. His own spies were sending reports. British intelligence was handing him direct evidence. American intelligence passed along what they knew. German defectors were literally crossing the border to warn him in person. We're not talking about one vague signal that could be misread. We're talking about over 80 separate intelligence warnings in the months leading up to the invasion. 80. And Stalin looked at all of that and said no. Not maybe. Not let me think about it. No. So why would the most suspicious man alive ignore 80 warnings? Here's the thing you have to understand about Stalin. He didn't think he was paranoid. He thought he was the smartest person in every room he walked into. And in his mind, attacking the Soviet Union made absolutely no sense for Hitler. Think about it from Stalin's perspective for a second. Germany was still fighting Britain. They hadn't knocked Britain out yet. Opening a second front against the largest country on Earth, with the longest winters on Earth, would be suicide. No rational leader does that while they're still fighting someone else. So when the warnings kept coming in, Stalin didn't see warnings. He saw a British trap, a trick to drag the Soviet Union into a war it didn't need to fight yet. Get Russia and Germany to destroy each other while Britain sat back and recovered. And honestly, his logic wasn't completely crazy, it was just completely wrong. Now here's where it gets really good. One of Stalin's best spies, a man called Richard Sorge, based in Tokyo, sent him a detailed report with the exact date of the German invasion. Not a rough estimate. Not a range of possible dates. The exact date. June 22nd. Stalin read it and wrote on the report, "This can go to hell." Then Churchill personally wrote to Stalin warning him about the invasion. Specific details, troop movements, timelines. Stalin thought it was a British trick, filed it away. Then his own military intelligence chief presented him with 14 separate confirmed reports, all pointing to the same conclusion. Germany was about to attack. Stalin accused him of being a German spy and told him to calm down. I mean, what do you even do with that information? And then the night before the invasion actually happened, a German soldier deserted, crossed the border into Soviet territory on his own, found Soviet commanders and told them exactly what was coming, tomorrow morning, the exact location, the exact time. Stalin had him shot for spreading panic. The man who came to save them or got executed for trying. His own generals were begging him to move troops to the border, just in case, just to have something in place. Stalin said no. He thought moving troops forward would provoke Hitler, give him an excuse to call the non-aggression pact broken, give him a reason to attack. So instead of preparing, the Soviet Union sat there with its hands in its pockets, waiting for nothing. And then on June 22, 1941, 3 million German soldiers crossed the border at once. 3 million. Across a front nearly 3,000 kilometers wide. The biggest military invasion in human history. At exactly the date Sorge had predicted. Exactly the date the defector had warned about. Exactly the date Churchill had written to Stalin about. And the Soviets had almost nothing in place to stop it. The first few hours were an absolute disaster. Soviet planes got destroyed on the ground, still parked in neat rows from the night before. Never even got the engines started. German bombers just flew over and took them out one by one. 66 Soviet airfields hit in the first few hours. Over 1,000 planes destroyed before a single one could take off. Entire Soviet armies got encircled in the first days. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers trapped, cut off, with no orders coming in and no way to reach their commanders. Communication lines went down completely. Commanders on the ground had no idea what was happening 3 kilometers away, let alone 300. Some units kept fighting. Others surrendered en masse because there was simply nobody to tell them what to do. And Stalin? He disappeared. The man who controlled literally every single decision in the entire country went completely silent for days. His generals tried to reach him. His inner circle tried to reach him. The people who ran the Soviet government tried to reach him. Nobody could get through. When they finally tracked him down, he was alone at his country house outside Moscow, just sitting there. Some historians believe he had a complete breakdown. The psychological weight of what he had allowed to happen was too much. Others think he genuinely expected to be arrested. That his inner circle were coming to his house not to check on him, but to remove him from power. Either way, the most powerful man in the Soviet Union had completely checked out, right at the exact moment his country needed him most. But here's the part of this story that really gets me. Stalin's paranoia didn't just make him ignore the warnings. It had actually already destroyed his own military before the invasion even started. Go back to the late 1930s. Stalin spent several years systematically purging the Soviet military leadership. Around 35,000 officers were arrested. Thousands were executed. His best generals, his most experienced commanders. The people who had actually fought wars and knew what they were doing. Why? Because Stalin was terrified of a military coup. He didn't trust anyone with that much military knowledge and that many armed men under their command. So when Germany invaded, the Soviet Union didn't just have a surprise problem, it had a catastrophic leadership problem. The commanders who could have organized a proper defense, Stalin had already removed from the equation years before the first German soldier crossed the border. He didn't just ignore the warnings of the invasion. He spent years making sure the invasion would be as damaging as possible if it ever came. Now, the genuinely remarkable thing about this story is what happened next, because Stalin recovered. Slowly, painfully, reluctantly. He came back from the country house, he got back on the phone, he started making decisions again, and some of those decisions were actually good. He moved entire Soviet factories east, thousands of them, beyond the range of German bombing. Steel plants, tank factories, weapons manufacturers, picked up and relocated thousands of kilometers east so production could continue even as Germany took huge amounts of Soviet territory. He promoted new commanders, younger men who hadn't been part of the old guard he'd purged. Men like Zhukov, who turned out to be genuinely exceptional military leaders. He stopped having people shot purely for bringing him bad news, which sounds like a low bar. But for Stalin, it was a significant change. And slowly, the Soviet military started to find its footing. The German advance slowed, then stalled, then stopped outside Moscow in the brutal winter of 1941. The same winter Stalin had told himself Hitler would never be foolish enough to fight in. The Soviet Union survived. It pushed back. It eventually won. But the cost was almost incomprehensible. 27 million Soviet citizens died in that war. 27 million. That number is so large it's almost impossible to actually picture. More than the entire population of most countries. Gone. And when you trace it all the way back, it comes down to one thing. Stalin had every single piece of information he needed. More intelligence than almost any other leader on Earth at that exact moment. His spy network was one of the best in the world. He just couldn't accept what that information was telling him when it contradicted what he already believed. His spies said invasion. His logic said impossible. He chose his logic every single time. The most paranoid man alive. Trusted the one person he absolutely shouldn't have. Not because he was naive, not because he lacked information, but because he trusted his own judgment more than he trusted reality. And 27 million people paid for it. That's the blunder.